Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the Nation80 Podcast. And as of today, which is November 6th, 2022, me and Michael are realizing that there was a time change. As you know, Hawaii doesn't change time, but Illinois does. So unfortunately, Michael's time was a little off. I slept in by an hour. So there's some tweaking to be done there, but it's all good because we're here for episode 24. Oh yeah, 24, the Nation80 Podcast. Mike, what's going on?
What's going on, man? Yeah, definitely got up earlier than I wanted to. But yeah, here for episode 24, ready to get into the project, talk about some news, and have some good discussion.
I hear that. Hey, Mike, so let's go ahead like we always do and start off about what we've been playing, watching, or reading this week. Or, whatever consuming. So, Mike, why don't you start us off this week?
Yeah, so I've actually have been watching Andor on Disney Plus, this Star
I've
Wars
been
show.
I've been meaning to ask you about that because I don't know, it's just been pretty quiet about that show. I haven't heard much.
Yeah, so when it first debuted, it was viewed as something that was much needed within like the Star Wars, especially because the Boba Fett show was not as uh, it didn't keep with that same type of tone as the Mandalorian did. And in fact, a lot of people said that Boba Fett was kind of a step back, and when I look back on it, I kind of agree with that. Definitely not one of my favorite Star Wars shows, but for it now to Andor, and this is such a I don't want to say a large departure from the typical Star Wars shows, but it takes the same tone as the movie Rogue One. I don't know if you saw that one,
Hmm.
um, where it was very serious, very I don't want to say dark, but none of the good guys survive in that movie. And one of them was Cassian Andor, who played the rebel spy. Um, and so this is basically his origin story. Um, in the TV show before he becomes an actual rebel spy. And man, it's fantastic. I am like hooked. And I'm surprised. It's a 12 episode season. And so I think I'm at episode 9 or 10 right now. It comes out weekly every Wednesday, I believe. And it's good. It's really good. It shows a part of the Star Wars universe that, especially if you grew up watching Star Wars, you never saw before. When you grew up, you watching, Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and Han Solo and those movies from A New Hope to um, Jedi Returns or Return of the Jedi. Uh, it was very good versus bad. You got these guys that are trying to fight the evil empire, and you got these stormtroopers that can't shoot to save their lives, and these epic sword battles with the lightsabers, and that's all you really knew. Okay, but Andor pretty much explains and shows it does a really great job of showing how not only Cassian Andor gets recruited, but how the rebellion comes along and like why people are actually rebelling against the empire. And it's dark, it's gritty. There's no huge space battles. It's like a spy thriller slash heist thriller. It's just really, really well done. The actors are really well done. You get to see some of the characters that you might know of from the Star Wars universe, like Mon Mothma. Um, uh, what's his name? Now that I'm trying to think from Rogue One. Oh my gosh, I probably
Forrest
should have brought.
Whitaker's character?
Yeah, Forrest Whitaker.
That's why I
Um,
was wondering if he was in it.
yeah, so Forrest Whitaker makes an appearance in the show. He's made an appearance in I think almost all the shows,
Mm.
including the animated stuff. Um, and then you have Andy Serkis. He's in the show too, um, which he played. I want to say he played the droid from Star Wars Rogue One. Um, but yeah, I mean, just a really, really good show. Highly recommended. I can't, like I said, it's nothing. The production is amazing, but there's not like huge space battles. There's no Jedi's. It's just about a guy who is constantly on the run from the Empire or being harassed by the Empire. In fact, the last episode, the last two episodes deals with him being, unjustly taken by the Empire and then put into prison for seemingly 10 years, just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like he literally was doing nothing. And then the Empire snatched him up because he they thought he was associated with a group of people, which he wasn't. And so just a really good show, and something I've really been enjoying just all week.
Okay. I was gonna say, I know I saw the first episode, and he got into a fight, a bar fight. Well, I won't even say a bar fight, but he was getting robbed, and he ended up killing somebody. And I was seeing the effects of that, and I never got to get further into the show. I think I got through the first two, maybe three episodes, which, like you said, it does have a different tone. It's definitely more gritty. It has a more like you said, spy thriller feel. I even say kind of a mob field, a feel to it as well, in some respects, right? And but yeah, I'll definitely have to go back and get to it eventually. And I did see that there is a second season coming, so there's more Andor to come. I don't. Do you know? In the respects of Rogue One, I'm assuming this is what 20 years before Rogue One, or like
Yes,
timeline wise.
yeah. So timeline wise, this basically takes place. I'm gonna say so. You have if people could imagine who watch any of the even like the animated stuff, this kind of takes place around. I'm gonna say like where you had Star Wars Rebels. Okay, this takes place after Obi-Wan, um, and it takes place. Yeah, so 20 years, I guess, is probably a good number to throw out there because you're not gonna see you know uh Luke or Leia. Leia was actually in, O'Neill, Obi-Wan.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely a prequel. Like it's because when you think about Rogue One takes place literally minutes before Star Wars: A New Hope.
Mm,
Okay, so that's like the end of Cassian's like story.
that's a good
Um,
point because I keep on forgetting about the ending of Rogue One.
because
Mhm.
the ending is literally them sending the transmission up to a ship, which is the ship that Leia is on at the beginning of A New Hope, uh, and that had that epic Darth Vader scene at the end of the movie where he's
Mhm.
just murking everybody. You're like, oh my god, this is the Darth Vader we've always wanted to see.
Yeah.
Uh, and so yeah, so that movie takes place literally minutes before A New Hope uh, starts, and so Andor's season or show is basically, like I said, it's like i- i- it's got to be maybe 20 years. It's been a long time, basically, because
Mhm.
when you see him in Rogue One, he's an experienced, spy, and he knows what he's doing and everything like that. He even makes a comment like we've done a lot of bad things, and there are some questionable things that Cassian does in this show that you're just like, whew, like there's some times that he kills people that you're just like, wow, that was cold. That was cold. Um, so yeah, definitely a good show. They're good, really good um actors in this show. Like I said, Diego Luna, he plays Cassian. He reprises Stellan Skarsgård is in there. He's ruthless in the show. Um, Forrest Whitaker, Alan Tudyk is in the show. Um, and in fact, that I think about, Alan Tudyk was the one that played the droid. Um, and then yeah, Andy Serkis is in the show as well. So very good show, definitely worth checking out. Definitely not one of those ones where don't get attached to certain characters because you never know if they're going to survive or not. Um, there's a black character that I was like, man, this guy's legit. All right, oh no, he's gone. Okay, never mind. I did not see that coming, and that's too bad. Um, but yeah, no, it's a good show. It's a really good show. It was definitely needed after Boba Fett, because Boba Fett was kind of a letdown.
Okay, Mike, if I was to put you on the spot and ask you what's been your top three Star Wars shows as of to date, what would that be?
Does that include the animated stuff
We
or
can do
just the
that.
live action stuff?
We can do both.
Okay. Man, so if I'm including the animated stuff, I gotta say number one, it still has to be Clone Wars.
Okay.
um, that ran 7 seasons, because that was just even though it was animated, that's what sparked all of this off. Okay.
Mm,
Without Clone Wars, we don't get an Ahsoka TV show, or we don't even get a live action Ahsoka. Her character is so amazing that people literally are like, okay, it's cool to see Anakin and Obi-Wan and Yoda. But people really grabbed onto Ahsoka. And so that was huge. So gotta go with Clone Wars as number one. Oh, and let me mention real quick. So the other thing I was watching, I don't know if you saw it on Disney Plus too, but they have I want to say it's 5 or 6 like 15-20 minute shows uh on Star Wars. It's not Star Wars Visions. Um, it's like Star Wars, like Tales of the Jedi or something like that. I think it is Tales of the Jedi.
mm,
And it's all like almost origin filler episodes for Ahsoka and Count Dooku and Mace Windu, and those are really good. Um, but yeah, so Clone Wars number one. I think two would absolutely have to be The Mandalorian. Um, and then three, that's kind of tough because, like I said, I'm really liking Andor. Um, Boba Fett, like I said, didn't really do it for me. But I and I'm not even sure I would put Obi-Wan in there. Because it was good, but I don't know. I'd have to watch Obi-Wan again. The only thing about Obi-Wan that I really enjoyed was his final battle with Vader at the end, and I did like how they brought Hayden Christensen back and showed a little bit of prequel stuff with that. But also, the only other really good part to me that was interesting was Moses Ingram when she played Reva.
Riva.
hmm So maybe number three. That's kind of a close one. But I would probably go with Star Wars: The Bad Batch, um,
Okay.
which is basically just a Clone Wars spinoff that's been pretty good. So
I heard good things about it, and I heard that ending is pretty powerful. I have to make time eventually to watch that because I've heard nothing but good things on it.
yeah, I mean, you got when you think about the TV shows, so you've got our boy. I can never remember anybody's names. I got to start bringing up people's names now that created the
Mhm,
show. But you got on the animated side, you got Dave Filoni,
mhm,
who created the whole animated. He's basically the Kevin Feige of the animated um, part, and then you have his counterpart for uh, the live action Star Wars shows, and they've done just a phenomenal job. And they actually sit down and talk, bounce ideas, because the live action shows and the animated, they're all part together.
mhm.
Okay. And like I said, that's why we got the Ahsoka uh, live action feature on there, and then that's why we're gonna get Grand Admiral Thrawn coming into the universe, and hopefully the Ahsoka spinoff. So, very good stuff. Very good stuff.
Okay, that's what's up. So this week, I don't have anything really notable, but there was something I forgot to mention. I don't think I mentioned last week, or I didn't have a discussion about last week. And that was She-Hulk, right? I finished She-Hulk finally.
Oh, okay.
And now that I've seen the whole thing, it's really good. The only
Okay.
thing that I would say that holds it back is its last episode because they
Mm,
try to do a meta last episode,
okay.
and but I the reason why I really like this show is the fact it has a tone like no other, right? And we kind of know this because of the comic book. If you ever read the She-Hulk think Lawyer for Hire, I can't remember
Yeah.
the little subtitle for it, but when she was basically when she was working in law and all these other things. And I know that CGI could be I almost say a necessary downfall, but it takes getting used to. But after a while, it works out just fine, right?
Hmm.
And what I like about it is that it doesn't take itself too seriously, right?
Yeah.
Like there's already a lot for someone who's going in to try to get used to, because it's She-Hulk, and She-Hulk has always been done differently, and she doesn't go by the same rules that like the actual Hulk goes by. And they didn't try to do this massive storyline that's going to go through every episode and all this other stuff. Point blank, the easiest way to say it is that once she becomes She-Hulk, people just want to screw with her because they feel like she doesn't deserve the powers to be She-Hulk. But at the same time, because now she has these powers, she's got to navigate through life, uh, the same life as She-Hulk. And man, now you talk about names. I can't remember what her alter ego is, but
Jennifer Walters.
Jennifer Walters. She still has to navigate as Jennifer Walters. So, there's an episode where she's at a wedding, and the bride to be is like, look, can you stop being extra and being She-Hulk? And she's like, I'm not even She-Hulk right now. Right. But and these would be, it's interesting that they put these dynamics in there that, like, for example, if I was to get superpowers tomorrow, there's always going to be someone who's think that you're trying to show off, but you're like, look, it's not my fault. I didn't want this in the first place, right?
Hmm.
And I think that was a great dynamic. Another thing I think they did well was, yeah, there might not have been a fight every week, but some of the other the supporting cast did really well in this too. That made this kind of fun, and some of the situations she found herself in was pretty dope as well. Like I said, if it wasn't for that last episode, I would be really, really high on this show. And I think that's something they can fix if they do a season two. And the lady, I can remember her first name, Tatiana. I can't recall how to say her last name. She's if you ever watch Black Orchid, she used to play 7 different characters
Hmm.
on that show, and she does a really good job, even just playing a singular character. And I really think she's not going to get the respect she deserves for this show because of the fact it's She-Hulk. She-Hulk isn't that popular and all this other stuff. But if we're talking about, I think, a show that we had a complaint a couple weeks ago about Disney/Marvel having these shows pop up for one season disappearing. uh She-Hulk could be a dope staple show. Oh, and then I'm sure you already heard about, but the guest appearance of Daredevil
Hmm.
really helped both of them, right? Because we got to see Charlie Cox in a different light, and we also kind of see how they might handle Daredevil in the future. And then we saw how he translates with someone like She-Hulk. And I thought that was dope too. So kudos to that show, because at the beginning I wasn't too hot on it, but looking at it now overall, they did a good job. It probably won't get the fanfare it deserves because it's pointed towards a different audience, and kind of like Andor, they're not doing these massive fights like Winter Soldier and Captain America, or stuff like that, right? So that's going to, of course, throw some people off because uh, it's not the Marvel way, quote unquote, right?
Right.
But it still, to me, ended up being a great show.
That's good. I need to finish that show. I think like you, I wasn't really feeling it in the beginning, and that's why I kind of stopped watching it. But I've had heard multiple people say pretty much what you said, that if you just push through it, it actually is pretty good show. And I know I've seen the headlines about how, um, I guess she breaks through the fourth wall uh,
Mm-hmm.
in the last episode. But yeah, it's definitely a show I want to go back to visit. I think solely because it's different, and I
Mm-hmm.
think the ones that are different at least are good, uh, in the respects that it's not following that traditional. This is kind of like how I wanted Miss Marvel to be,
Mm,
because I thought Miss Marvel was going to be different, and it wasn't. Like it started off really well, and
mm-hmm.
then it just flatlined by the end. And so, um, it was that same old Marvel trope of this is the formula that we're going to follow.
Yeah.
And that was unfortunate because I thought they had a real opportunity with Kamala Khan, and I feel like they squandered it because they made it like everything else. And so I think that's why I like Andor. I think that's why I'm going to revisit She-Hulk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Mike, just to go off of what you said, I think when they do that, they don't, because there's no expectation for the show, right? There's
Right.
no expectation, I think, respectfully for Andor, and there's no expectation for She-Hulk.
Hmm.
So you can kind of play around a little bit more than you can with something tied to, like, for example, Endgame, right? Winter Soldier had to have a particular tone to it because we knew what happened in
Right.
Endgame,
Right.
right? If they
Right.
came out of a Wakanda TV show, which I'm kind of surprised they haven't yet, uh, I think it would have that same thing where it's like, okay, tell me what happened after Wakanda, whatever, and then let's
Hmm.
talk about this and let's talk about that. And that would just make things a bit harder because um, there's some unique characters out there that don't need to follow the 616 formula all the time. That would be great to see, but
Hmm.
we'll see how that goes. All right, so now that we've talked about the things that we did this week, let's get into some, you know what, let's knock out some Marvel news real quick and get it out the way, and then move on to some gaming news. It's all gaming news this week. There wasn't much on the TV side. The only big thing that I did see, and I don't have much information about it, was my boy who was in the Aquaman movie has now been casted as Wonder Man, right? Oh, actually, sorry. Before we get there, I don't know what I'm doing. We have a movie trailer, and it's
Hmm.
been something that we've all been waiting for, right? Because the millions and the millions of fans have been super excited about this. I'm being facetious here, okay? I am talking about Avatar: The Way of the Water. And so we have been given this glossy, shiny, beautiful 4K trailer or 8K, whatever K trailer, of the new world of Avatar and what's going on and all these other things. And I'm going to start this one off, right? Because the one time that I looked at it, because I didn't look at it more than once, is I have no clue what's taking place. I will say that that trailer will show at every Best Buy to show you how good an 8K TV is,
Right.
because it is beautiful. And this is what we know for every Avatar movie. Well, I mean, excuse me, for at least the first Avatar. Because even now, if I was to put Avatar on my television, it still looks beautiful. I don't deny that at all. But um, it hasn't changed the way I feel, in the sense of, if I want to see what James Cameron is adding to the technical world of filmmaking, this is the perfect movie to see. But on the story and capturing my emotion side, we ain't even close. And so I would just say that the trailer is okay, but it's nothing to write home about. Um, Avatar 1 was so far ago that I don't even know if my interest to even see it, see 2 or 3, is even there anymore. And then on the other side of it is that I don't even, because they didn't even show you who the real big bad is, right? We don't know if the forest is being attacked again. We don't know. They didn't give me, they just went off the glitz and glamour of the visuals. They didn't go story again. To me, that's a red flag. Because I've watched many of superhero movies, and the ones that show you all the cool little fight scenes where the car is flying over someone's head in slow motion, the movie is usually terrible. So um, I'm I am still holding caution in the wind when it comes to this movie. It's not to say that it's going to be bad. It's just they're, like Michael was mentioning before, they're going off a particular trope, and I'm hip to that game. So I'm just going to wait and see what comes down later. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a pretty good trailer. Thought there were some pretty interesting things about it. You can see that Jake and Neytiri had a kid.
Hmm.
They start their own family. It looks like they've left their land to go through and go ahead and be. Uh, Almost looks like they've taken to the ocean. Basically, they've gone to that world on Pandora, and I guess the main thing for me is that I'm and I don't know if this is going to be true or not. Uh, but Zos Saldana, who plays Neytiri, I don't know if she's gonna survive in this movie because they didn't show a whole lot of her. They showed her pregnant, and then
Yeah,
like literally the next thing they show was Jake with his kid, but there's no mom to be found. So I feel like she gets killed in
yeah.
this movie, which
I
is gonna
kind of
suck when it happens.
I
Um,
agree.
so uh, I'm I'm excited for this movie. I'm excited to see this movie. It looks like those pesky humans are back, trying to do their take the resources from the land type deal. It does mention that there is an ancient evil that's lurking about, but you don't know what that is. And then like you said, I'm a huge fan of Avatar. I could watch that movie all the time.
Same.
But it has been a long time since the first one. Uh, and you're coming back with this second one that's going to be 3 hours and 10 minutes long.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a 3 hour and 10. That's the running time for Avatar is 3 hours and 10 minutes. And so,
you know what? We never talk about this a lot, but James Cameron is another individual who never does short movies.
right. No, he's all about those long,
Yeah,
those long, those long
yeah.
movies. But the original Avatar was only 2 hours and 40 minutes. So now and that's nothing to 2 hours and 40 minutes, still a long movie.
Hmm.
um and so you're adding on another 30 minutes to we were worried about the Batman for being a
Hmm.
3 hour long movie,
Hmm.
but it paid off. It was good. It's one of the best Batman movies I've ever seen. um I enjoyed it. I absolutely enjoyed it. uh this one being, oh man, I want to see what the budget is on this bad boy. Okay. Because James, and it's not even like the CGI, it's the cameras, it's the equipment that they use to go underwater and everything like that. Like, this is going to be an expensive movie. Um, and I'm worried that if it doesn't perform well, and I don't even know if it matters to James Cameron at this point, because he's taken so long to have. I know he's wanted to wait for the technology to be right. Um, 250 million. Jeez. That's the budget for this film.
Actually, it's a billion. So what they did is I don't know if you know, but they filmed concurrently. They filmed two and three together.
Okay.
Um, sorry. Apparently, there might even be a four and a five. Um,
Oof. Oof.
rumored, right? But I do know that they filmed 2 and 3 together, just kind of like they think they did with the Matrix. They did it with something else, and so they've expected to spend about $1 billion on these
Oh,
next
yeah, I'm
couple of
seeing that
movies.
right now. That's crazy.
Hmm.
$1 billion.
Yeah,
All I gotta say is it better be worth it.
yeah.
I mean,
I'm with you, Mike, because I'm curious. Time has changed on a lot of different ways, and if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, Avatar is now owned by Disney, right?
yeah,
It's not, I mean, under the Fox umbrella, but it's still owned by Disney,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So some of the little quote unquote risque things like the sex with the tail, all that stuff, um, is I think has been like quietly edited out and changed around, which that's not like anything major. But I guess what I'm saying more than anything is um a Disney flop is different than a Fox flop,
right,
right? So if you spend 250 million on a movie and it flops under the Disney umbrella, like the other movies might not see the light of day, or they're going to really go back to the drawing board to see how they can right the ship, which I don't think you can. Compared to if it flops under Fox, Fox is like, well, we already got the other ones, so we might as well just throw it out anyway,
right,
right?
right,
So, because I mean, I know how much flack that second Star Wars movie gets. If it wasn't for the fact that it was in the trilogy, we probably wouldn't have got a third, right? Just because of how mixed the reviews were for it and it being under the Disney umbrella, right?
hmm
So, I'm that part. I think a lot of people, I won't even say they forget. It's the fact that oh man, to be honest with you, right? Because I'm looking at just in comparison, I'm looking at all the buildup now for Wakanda Forever. If Wakanda Forever doesn't hit 1 billion in just say overwide sales, and I'm thinking they're looking at 1.5 billion, it would be considered a failure. No matter how good the movie was, no matter what the circumstances are, if it doesn't hit that, it's considered a failure. And
right,
they probably spent less than Avatar. Avatar, they are probably expecting massive numbers. I'm thinking, don't hold me to this, but they got to be expecting like end game numbers. They almost have to for that much money to be spent.
right.
But I don't know.
No, I think that's a fair point because I'm just going down the list of top lifetime grossing films, right?
Hmm.
And Avatar is still number one. They're almost at 3 billion. Uh,
Hmm.
but keep in mind that movie's been out since 2009. Okay,
Hmm.
whereas Endgame, as you mentioned, is number two at almost 2.8 billion, and that movie's been out for 3 years. Okay, um, and now and then I'll throw another one at you, Top Gun,
Hmm.
a movie that was a sequel that we didn't get for damn near 20 years, you know. Um, so you talk about like interest in movies, like or will people have an interest in a second Avatar movie? Well, people surely had an interest in a second Top Gun movie, and for a movie that just came out this year, it's already at 1.4 billion.
Damn. I guess
So
there's something to be said about nostalgia.
yeah, so I think originally I thought that who's gonna watch Avatar? Like it's been too long. This movie
Hmm.
came out in 2009, but after seeing how well Top Gun did, man, I don't know. I mean, I mean that was an 80s movie, you
And then
know?
and then I was gonna say like it's not this high end Marvel movie, right?
No.
So I mean, and I haven't watched it yet, so I can't make a full depiction of what is being seen on the screen. But for it to make it really had to warm the heart in
Well,
other ways.
I will also say like I don't know if it really warmed the heart,
Mhm.
but from everybody that I've talked to that has seen it, it's one of the most because it was obviously high production value.
Mm-hmm.
Not just as far as they're not using CGI or anything like they're using real fighter
Fighter jets.
planes. They're
Yep.
not using models or anything like that. But the quality of the cinematography, because every actor was in those planes.
Mm.
Um, and I've seen the behind the scenes, and it's insane, absolutely insane what these pilots were able to do, and the fact that you had the actors in the back seat during this whole experience with the cameras on the actors to make it really the
Seemed
thing that
like
people
they're the
have
ones
said it,
flying.
yeah, like basically people said it's like one of the most immersive films um
Interesting.
that you can see.
Well, th-
And
well,
so what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, well, I guess that adds to the technical advancements, right? Like I
Right.
said, if James Cameron does something like you said, Michael, like the cinematography going in the water, out the water, I'm sure he created some whole new thing
Hmm.
that's going to become the new baseline for Hollywood because of it. And that's what makes James Cameron James Cameron. But that's why his movies do so well. That and the fact that he's damn near pointing a gun at his actors,
Right.
from what I always hear. But regardless, um, a lot sometimes that stuff is what really shines. And for me, like um Avatar's cinematography hits me more than the story does every time, right? The story helps it along because, like, I know you heard the same similarities that Avatar's story is equated to Pocahontas one way or another, right? You can make the story like when you were talking about earlier, I was thinking of Ice Age, right? That
Hmm.
story could be just like Ice Age, but if the cinematography, film, the cameras do what it's supposed to do, the story is just secondary,
Hmm.
right? Because we're looking. I know how how many people bought a 3D television because of Avatar.
Right.
Like, there was whole movie theaters erected for Avatar.
Yeah.
The viewing pleasure changed because of Avatar, right? Like if your HD TV at the time couldn't handle Avatar, then it was considered weak, right?
Right. Right.
It changed the whole landscape of how we viewed stuff. And don't
Yep.
get me wrong, 3D TVs came and went, and like but it took that 3D camera to its limits. Compared, the only other movie I can think of that even got close was Gravity.
Right.
But I remember they tried to do like the first couple Marvel movies, like, oh, we have the 3D version, and you were like, no, you
No.
don't.
No.
You only do a scene here, a scene there. But
Yeah. And I
you
remember
know,
watching Avatar in 3D in the theaters, and I remember
hmm
thinking, "Man, this is dope, man! Like this is some legit stuff." So I don't know,
yeah,
man. I mean, I guess it's a spectacle to see, regardless.
it's gonna
You
be a
know,
wait and see approach,
Y-
basically.
yeah, it's gonna
Hmm.
be a, I don't know if you know, I guess going to movies on the opening weekends are just out for me. They're not happening.
Hmm.
Um, but whether or not I actually go to a movie theater to actually see this movie, uh, yeah, I guess it's gonna be you know, let's see what the scores are. Let's see what the Rotten Tomato score is like. If I
Yeah.
see um, anything less than 50%, then you can you can skip it.
Well, I'm terrified that a movie like this would get review bombed. I don't know
Y-
how Rotten Tomatoes handles that these days. I know they're having issues with it in the past, right? But
yeah, they kind of do like the like Metacritic. Like you have your actual like professional movie critics
mhm,
score,
mhm,
and now they have a people score. So just like Metacritic, where like the Metacritic score is
actual movie critic.
actual, reviewers and everything like that, and then you get like the people reviews who will always, like you said, review bomb something if they don't like it. Um, but I remember thinking, even watching, I showed Aaliyah's Avatar, I think last year,
Mhm,
and I remember thinking that there were there were more than enough times during that movie where it was just slow. It was slow,
mhm. Yeah.
because they're like you said, it's kinda like a Pocahontas, Dances with Wolves type of situation,
Mhm,
and so there's not a whole lot of action. There's action, um, but it's in very select parts of the movie, and you're
mhm.
really just looking to, explore this world of Pandora, uh, and so with this movie being a 3 hour and 10-minute movie, man, I don't know. Like Batman being 3 hours, I think what kept me in Batman, not that it was constant action, but it was a constant like thriller as far as it was a crime drama, right?
It was a mystery.
Right. And so
Hmm.
you're constantly trying to figure out like what is going on. Your brain is just going like, okay, what's the next clue? Who's getting murked next?
Hmm.
Who's gonna survive? Who's gonna die? And then you get your action in there. So that 3 hours was a fun 3 hours.
Hmm.
Um, if this next Avatar movie is anything like the first Avatar movie, and the fact that it's over 3 hours long, man, I don't know if that's gonna be able to keep me. 3 hours is a lot to ask.
I know.
It's a lot to ask. I thought Batman pulled it off well, but like you said, James, he likes to do things long, and
And mind you, and that's probably why they only have humans in this, is because of the fact that it's 3 hours.
right,
Because I mean, if you're doing CGI all the way through, because I know they did a lot of this in the warehouse, they had to.
right,
It's just, but yeesh.
yeah.
So just another thing here. This is coming December 16, 2022. It's like almost here already, right?
Oh,
It's literally got a
jeez.
month. So
And we're just now seeing trailers, really.
yeah, yeah. So they really have. So let's put it this way: Avatar 2 has the perfect storm. They are putting the movie out in the fourth quarter. They're putting out pretty much, I think, well, I mean, it's a few days before, but they're putting it right there at the Christmas holiday to get that Christmas money. But I don't know, people still go to the movies for Christmas. I never did. But uh, they're doing everything to try to recoup all that. So again, going back to our conversation about budget and expectations, this is when this movie really needs to show out. And even though it's going to be in theaters before it, uh, Black Panther 2, that movie you showed me about the other day with David Harbour,
Oh,
um,
Violent Night.
yep, Violent Night, A Christmas Story, has a new movie coming out, and a few others are going to really eat at it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it can, really make its money. You know, so I'm really interested to, just even as an observer. I'm gonna be clear. I don't want it to fail, or anything like that. I'm just curious to see in this new landscape of movie and storytelling and shorter features. Because I don't know if anybody during the holidays wants to go see a 3 hour movie.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
and so I would say that this is probably that, and this may be because of why it took so long to come out because of timing and everything like that.
Mhm,
If this movie was coming out when the Star Wars movies were coming out and the Marvel movies were coming out, I think it would be a tough sell to go. Do I want to watch Avatar, 3 hour movie Avatar, or do I want to watch Endgame
mhm,
or the newest Star Wars movie? And it's one of the reasons why Star Wars didn't do as well um,
because it was combating
as the
those
Marvel
Marvel movies.
movies because it
Yep.
was competing against the Marvel movies. Um, like they were competing releases. It was just big release after big release after big release. And there are no big releases in December. You know,
Hmm.
there are definitely, like I said, Violent Night is coming out at the beginning of December. But I'm looking through all the December releases, and there's no big budget movie coming out other than Avatar.
Avatar.
So it's either going to be they're either going to make gangbusters off of this or they're going to fail miserably. And it's going to be even more noticeable because it was the only blockbuster movie to come out in December. So I
Yeah, there's
like you
always
said,
that sleeper in the holiday season.
yeah, like you said, I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know who, like you said, wants to sit in the movie theater during Christmas break and watch a 3 hour movie. I could be wrong. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm out of touch with the movie theaters now. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens. And like you said, I don't want them to fail, but it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I think something like this will definitely determine the landscape of our longer movies, right? So, yeah, good luck to James Cameron and all those involved, and we'll see what happens. All right, so let's go ahead and get to some gaming news here. Like I said, there wasn't much on the TV side other than Avatar being the big thing this week. But let's talk Marvel because we always talk Marvel. And Marvel has agreed to sign a 3 year, excuse me, a 3 game deal with EA. As reported by Bloomberg, this deal will begin with the previously announced Iron Man game from EA Motive, with all 3 games coming to console and PC. Though details about what's coming after Iron Man are still thin, each game will feature its own original story set in the Marvel Universe. Perhaps known more for its sports and traditional shooter games, EA is looking to increase its offerings with the Marvel deal. We have an intentional, deliberate strategy to have a balanced portfolio, said Chief Operating Officer Laura Miele. There will be Marvel fans who don't play other EA games. It is unclear if the second or third game will be centered on different Marvel characters like the Hulk or Thor, or if it will be follow-ups to the Iron Man games, similar to what Insomniac did with Spider-Man or its spin-off Miles Morales and upcoming sequel. Nothing about a release schedule or single versus multiplayer focus has mentioned either. Though we do know that EA Motive's Iron Man is a single player action adventure game. EA Motive is the developer behind the upcoming Dead Space remake and has previously worked on other titles like Star Wars Squadrons and Star Wars Battlefront 2. But we'll just have to wait and see which other studios are involved in the remaining 2 Marvel projects. Mike, please start us off.
Yeah, so it's an interesting deal. It makes me a little nervous because uh the with the exception of Spider-Man and Miles Morales, we haven't really, and I take that back, and Guardians of the Galaxy, we really haven't had a good Marvel game, especially from EA. Um, and so I think and I never played this. I just watched you play it. Uh, and I'm thinking about the Avengers game, and all the flack that it got, and looking at the gameplay from what you played. I know you said it was a decent game, um, but it didn't give me that feeling of like a Spider-Man or a Miles Morales. Um, so I'm nervous the fact that EA sometimes I feel like EA is kind of like Fox, right? Um, they throw a lot of stuff out there. They shotgun a lot of stuff out there, and yes, you can find some absolute gems in what they've put out, what Fox has put out. Um, Same thing with EA. Uh, EA just shotguns a lot of stuff out there, and you could pick out some gems that they've done that have been really good. For me, most recently, it's been Jedi Fallen Order. That no one expected that game to be that good, and it was. But I think that was mostly part because the developer was largely hands off with EA. Like EA didn't really bother them that much. I hope that's the case with this one because it's Iron Man, and I know that's your boy, and so I feel like there's a lot you could do with that. Um, so I'm nervous, but I'm kind of excited. And the fact that EA Motive is doing it, especially because they're doing Dead Space, they've worked on Star Wars Squadrons, both of which I've played Star Wars Squadrons. I really enjoyed it. Um, I won't count Battlefront 2 in there, uh, but hey, there's some possibility. There's a lot of possibility. Um, I kind of get nervous with with what's coming out. I hope that they kind of go in the Spider-Man Miles Morales games, kind of have Tony start going through, put him in whatever city he's going to be in. Um, or if you're going to do multiple cities, like have it be like a detailed something. I mean, if you're going to be Iron Man, you got to be traveling, right? You got to be flying around, make that experience. What made Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales so much fun was that you could swing around New York like the actual Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Make it feel like you're actually in the Mark 1 or whatever Iron Man suit they're going to use, the Mark whatever, and make it feel to the player like that's not that it's something that you can fly around in, that you can accelerate, that you can gain altitude in, and then still bring the pain, with whatever weapons and tech that are traditional with those Iron Man suits. So I don't know. I mean, there, like they said, there's not a lot of details on this. I do know for one thing there better not be any microtransactions. EA is
Mhm.
notorious for forcing microtransactions on us in their games, which was why Fallen Order was such a surprise because everybody's like, "Oh, there's going to be microtransactions," and there never was, so that was good. So hopefully this game follows suit. And because they've announced this, it's kind of sucks because AAA games like this are like movies. They take years to develop. Um, and I'm not talking like a couple of years, it's like 3 to 4 years if we're lucky, because there's always going to be delays, especially these days. There's always delays. So it could be 5 to 6 years before we actually see this game. So I don't know. I would love, I'm excited for an Iron Man experience. I just hope they do right by it.
Yeah. So um I'm slightly concerned. So number one, Square Enix really screwed up the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy game. And when I say that, um like the game was fun, and if me, you, and my brother Brandon were playing it, we would have a blast because it's us. Just like I can guarantee we'll have fun with Gotham Knights when the price drops, if we played it multiplayer, right? But the problem with the Avengers game was that it was repetitive, but it had a decent story. It's just the fact that your missions was almost the same type of mission all the way through, right? Now, this going to EA, the first thing I told myself was that they're going to take that old game Anthem and use the flying mechanics for Iron Man. I can almost guarantee it. Um, because if they decide to go the open world route, right? The reason I say that is because Anthem, with all its flaws and how horrible that game was, the upside was its flying mechanics, and it was ahead of its time because you didn't see it in other games. Because we would wish that something like a Superman game or any game with a flying character had those mechanics. So I can definitely see that. Um, the thing that scares me the most, Mike, is like you were saying, 5 to 6 years. I could see a year because of the fact that, you know, is I don't, the other side of this is I don't know if it's going to be given the 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 essence that it's going to require, the passion, or all that stuff, because they just know it's a title that can be if you slap Iron Man on top of it, they will come. Don't get me wrong, those who are blase blah won't come, but guess what? I guarantee people still bought Gotham Knights at well over, probably, let's say, 300,000. And there'll be those individuals who would buy Iron Man, and then they'll make the rest off of sales. And so uh I am curious, and then I would also believe EA had a template already set up that they just need to tweak before this Marvel deal came together. I'm sure that EA had to say, hey, this is what we're thinking, this is the route we're going, here's some framework markups that we have that think would be an ideal way to go with Iron Man. And then if you don't know, and I found this out recently, reading a couple things, a lot of people hate working with Marvel/Disney on games because they keep their hands in the honeypot the whole time, and they consistently uh have to ask for changes to be made, this to be changed, this is how, not how this character will act. It's there's constantly someone sitting on top of them. That's what a lot of people said. Square had an issue with making the Avengers because Marvel kept on keeping their hands in the pot and saying how things needed to be changed. And I don't know if that's good or bad. So I don't know. I'm extremely cautious when it comes to this Iron Man game. I'm extremely cautious when it comes to the other two games because which directions do you go, right? I don't see them. If I'm a betting man, I would assume we would get a Iron Man game. We might get a Marvel Alliance ish game with particular characters in it, but I don't see that new character that we've never seen before in a particular game. Like I don't see a Miss Marvel game, even though that'd be kind of dope if they were doing her comic book powers, right?
Mhm.
But I'm oh actually I'm sorry because we saw Miss Marvel in the Avengers game, but I just don't see them. I don't see them, trying to experiment. I think they're going to stay close to the vest, and they're not going to. I just don't see anything groundbreaking
Right.
necessarily coming,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I think they'll keep to the same mold, um, but they'll of course tweak some things because compared to like they said doing shooters, they're dealing with superheroes, and so we'll see.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it's going to be not something that I'm super excited about because it is EA.
Hmm.
They just don't, like I said, they shotgun a lot of stuff out there.
They haven't moved the
Um,
needle in a very long time either.
no, and there have been a few exceptions, um, but nothing, I guess, real consistent. Um,
Hmm.
and they have a bunch of stuff in development right now. Um, even the Dead Space remake is going to be coming out soon.
Hmm.
You still got the second Star Wars game to come out, Jedi Survivor. Um, they've got Dragon Age 4 coming out, the new Mass Effect game coming out, new Need for Speed. What else they got? Of course, Iron Man.
And you got the Bethesda titles.
Yeah,
Well,
so
no, no, no. They don't own Bethesda. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
no, they also have a first person shooter for Star Wars coming out. That's in development. They got a Star Wars strategy game coming out. Um, Skate's coming out. Omega Force hunting game. Some of these titles I've never even heard of before.
Where's
Shoot,
NBA Live? Where's NBA Live?
what's funny is that you said that. Well, guess what is coming back? EA Sports College Football is coming back.
I can't wait.
Yeah,
That's a game I've been waiting for a long time.
yeah. So that'll be coming back. That'll be interesting to see. It's got a July 2023 release
Oh
as of
wow, that's
now.
almost here.
PJ Tour. Looks like they got another NHL game coming out. Uh, they have a new Battlefield coming out. Um, and then they have an untitled open world action adventure game. So whatever that, take that for whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
EA's got a lot. Like I said, that's a lot to put out. I don't know the dates on all of these. I'm sure a lot of these are going to be 2023, 2024, 2025.
Hmm.
Uh, and I am just going to assume most of them are going to be terrible,
Hmm.
or just not good. Uh,
Mediocre at best.
and because EA likes to put in microtransactions, I can see at least half of these having microtrans. I mean, the sports games are going to have microtransactions in there. This open world action adventure will probably have microtransactions. Battlefield will most certainly have microtransactions in it. Because that's where EA will make their money in those microtransactions. As disgusting as it is, people love their microtransactions. so
The amount that people will pay for a skin is boggling sometimes.
mind-boggling
And
for
I know this
people.
because my daughter plays Roblox, and if she could, she would pay top dollar just for a pair of pants.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and yeah, Need for Speed, that's gonna have microtransactions. I guarantee it.
yeah.
Um,
So Mike, let me ask you real quick because as we were having this discussion, it made me think about something, right? Because it's coming real soon and it's related to Marvel. Marvel Midnight Suns is coming in December. And it's being done by Fraxis, the same people who did XCOM 1 and 2. Uh,
I
but
have
I don't
no
know
interest
about
in
you.
playing that game.
I haven't heard nothing. Nothing.
It's a card game.
No, it's supposed to be like XCOM.
I want to say that it's supposed to be like a 'cause I saw a trailer on it, and I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure it's a card game. Like
So
it
at least what they're saying sorry to cut you off. At least what they're saying right now that it is going to be turn-based, just like the XCOM series.
hmm,
And then between combat missions, player will be managing the upgradable base of operations called the Abbey, which they can walk around in third-person view to explore the grounds and interact with other heroes. But I haven't seen not one gameplay video on this, and it's coming out in December in 1 month. I've seen the trailers or whatever and stuff like that, which of course, you take
okay,
that with a grain of salt. Go
yeah,
ahead.
so it is, yeah, like you said, like so it does turn based, but it's not the combat is not like XCOM. It's still going to be card based. That's what
Oh,
it is. Yeah. So
okay.
yeah, so I'm just looking at some of the screenshots right now. Like it does look like if you take the cards away, it does look like XCOM,
XCOM.
but it
Mhm.
is still a card based game. Which is like that's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
I can't get into that kind of thing. Um like I like to be involved. This is why I don't play like Final Fantasy anymore.
Mhm.
Um and I don't know if it's changed or not, but XCOM was phenomenal. And I'm actually thinking about picking up that Mario Rabbids XCOM game. um, because I've heard that is just that's a legit straight up XCOM game, but with Mario. Which would have been fun if that was like this for Midnight Suns. But like I said, I remember seeing the trailer and I was like, oh my god, it looked really good until I saw like they're using cards to do these fights, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I just
I have to see more on the game. I don't think it's going to do well at all. It
yeah, I
only
don't.
and
Who's this by?
Fraxis, the
Oh
ones who did the last two XCOM games.
yeah.
So, and here's the thing, I did like the other two games, the two XCOM games, right?
Hmm.
But um after playing the original XCOM, there was still something missing from those XCOM games. It wasn't like they were bad, but there wasn't much meat to them either, right?
Right.
So that unfortunately, I would say have to play a part in this.
It's
All
hard.
right.
It's hard. We're talking about the Iron Man game. There's so many Marvel games that have been put out. It's hard to have faith. It's kind of I feel like it's kind of like what happened to Star Wars before Fallen Order. There's so many Star Wars games that were put out that were just crap. Um, that people were excited about Fallen Order.
Hmm.
And then you played it, you're like, holy cow, this was really great. And now it's getting a sequel. So I'm waiting for that next Marvel game to come out that's going to be like that, where we're just completely thrown off of our chair, like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't believe EA came up with this. And I don't know if it's going to be Iron Man or not, but
Okay,
I'm
so
just
quick
looking for that.
question. Now that you said that, excluding Spider-Man, when was the last good Marvel game?
Right. Yeah.
And matter of fact, I won't even throw Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy in there. Excluding those games, when's the last good Marvel game?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm gonna say I'm gonna say the Avengers game on arcade from like the 80s.
Oof,
I'm
that's
sure there's one after that.
I guess
I
we could
just
say
can't think of any.
the only others that come to mind is Marvel Alliance 1 and 2. And
Oh yeah, duh. Yeah.
and
Yes,
because
absolutely.
3 was cool, but 3 there's a lot of missteps with that
Yeah.
one. And then I would say the Capcom versus Marvel series, you know, are, but then after that, I would same with you. I would go to the arcade, the X-Men arcade game, the Avengers arcade game, the Spider-Man and Friends arcade game. You
Hmm.
know, but there isn't anything recently next gen, not even next gen, but on a current system that has just blown my mind. That Avengers game had a good chance of doing it, and it didn't hit it. That Guardians game is heralded to be better, but they missed the mark as well. So
I haven't played that one, so you didn't enjoy that one at all, huh?
I played the first level, and I see what route they were going, and it just actually no. Let me just honestly say I didn't give it the time it deserved, right? But from what I heard, it was better than the Avengers game. But I don't know. I just wasn't. You know what? Guardians tried to do more like Uncharted in space, I think, and I think at least from what I played, it kind of worked, but I just couldn't gravitate to it. There's just too much going on at the time. Other games that were more interesting. So I think that's what happened and why I didn't play it. But if it pops up during this holiday for $10, I'm all over it, and I'll do a better review of it. All right, let's get into one other piece of news, and then we're going to head to the project because we've had some great discussions today. So um, Sony has recently came out and said they've lost nearly 2 million subscribers from PlayStation Plus since its revamp. The number of PlayStation Plus subscribers has fallen by almost 2 million since Sony launched its revamped subscription service in June. According to the company's latest financial report, Sony's multi-tiered PlayStation Plus subscription service has dropped from 47.3 million at the end of June to 45.4 million. Sony highlighted that the ratio of games subscribed to the service is significantly higher on the PlayStation 5 than it is on previous generation PS4 console. In response, Sony leadership plans to accelerate the adoption of PS5 hardware to recover this user engagement going forward. Though its numbers dropped on the digital side, Sony still had a strong showing when it comes to PlayStation 5 hardware. The company announced that it has now sold more than 25 million units. I don't know where they are because I've never seen them. Sony announced the revamp of its PlayStation Plus service in March as a subscription, somewhat akin to Microsoft Xbox Game Pass, but didn't complete the rollout until June when it had a three-tier system that arrived in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. All right, I'm gonna stop there. Um, you know why that PlayStation lost these people was because of the Microsoft Game Pass.
Yep.
And
Yep.
don't be wrong, the PlayStation 4 has done well due to all the supply chain issues that have happened. But um, the lack of being unable to get a PlayStation 5 and the fact that a lot of games have now PlayStation exclusive have now come to PC to me would be the fact I can't explain for you, but due to some of the things going on in the world, I trimmed the fat on a lot of my subscription based services,
Hmm.
right? Especially if they weren't getting used a lot.
Hmm.
This includes Game Pass. Game Pass is excellent. Don't get it twisted. But Game Pass still did not have enough games to keep me, or excuse me, I didn't play enough of the Game Pass games to justify the service compared to when I got my Steam Deck and that same $5 using for Game Pass, I was able to buy a AAA game off a Steam Deck that I wanted. Not that I was, that was just a game that they just added and then it's going to disappear. It was a game that I could purchase and I can keep. So when I look at this, and don't get it twisted, it's not much. They have 47 million subscribers. It just went down by 2 million. It doesn't mean that their service is crap. It's just the fact that there's alternatives out there, and I would still be remiss not to say that PlayStation is still king of the hill, realistically. But I would say in the future, like people were wondering about that Activision deal, That's going to come into. I would highly say that's going to come into play, as these gaming wars continue. And because Microsoft owns Activision, I think that sale is almost completed, or it is complete. So, once those contracts are done, and everyone's like, hey, don't worry, PlayStation is going to keep uh COD on all systems. Not if not if Xbox is losing the war. I guarantee that. Why would you do that? But, you know, to me, this isn't that big of a deal yet. But like if the Steam Deck continues to improve, let's say Steam Deck 2 is even pumping out more better graphics than whatever. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a problem after a while. Because there's just no need for me to have a console. And there's no need for me to be paying, I don't know what they're asking for, but there's no need for me to be paying, let's say, $20 a month for a PlayStation service that's going to maybe give me three AAA titles, a whole bunch of archive titles that are like 3 years old, and then still want me to pay for whatever.
Right.
It's just not it for me. Mike, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I have a slightly different take on it as far as my philosophy for it. I was thinking about it this week, how um I don't like you, I don't really console game right now. And 99.9% of it is because of the Steam Deck. Uh I play my Steam Deck everywhere, at home, at work, out and about. And for the most part, I play it handheld. The only time I play it docked is when I'm at work. Um, and I've gotten to the point where uh, I don't like you. I don't know if I necessarily need another console. I think if I know that when it becomes more widely available, then I will get a PS5, and that'll probably be my last console for me. And I may walk that back a little bit because I will wait for another Nintendo Switch to come out, and I'm really waiting for the light version that will have OLED screen on it. Um, just because I'm more of a handheld person now. I've always been a handheld person, I guess. But that Nintendo Switch Lite would be a nice addition to my handhelds. So as far as Sony goes, this is why they're worried about that Activision deal. It hasn't been completely approved yet, because the folks at Sony are trying really hard with the national and the international authorities to not have this deal go through. And for this exact reason, because even though Microsoft said yes, it'll still be available on the PlayStation, what I didn't know was that the same thing happened with Minecraft. Okay. Um, and when Minecraft went completely exclusive to um, Microsoft, it was still available on the PlayStation. But when you wanted to play online, you had to sign in to a Microsoft account on your PlayStation. So all those plans and subscribers that they thought they were going to get from Minecraft ended up just being funneled to Microsoft.
They
Um,
did that for the Switch as well, because my daughter has it on her Switch.
yeah, and so that's what Sony's worried about. They're worried that, yeah, uh, once that 5-year deal is up, uh, that Microsoft is going to do what they did with Minecraft. Um, and Microsoft, or I'm sorry, Sony has been behind this. It's two different companies with two different philosophies. Sony has always had the more powerful, the more impressive hardware. Um, they've always had the more impressive AAA uh, single player type games. Um, Xbox has always had a better user experience, especially online. Um, Especially when it came to multiplayer. And they're really the first ones to jump on board with not just with Game Pass, but with backwards compatibility, which Sony is now struggling with. Uh, and like they've been trying to do backward capability, but they've been having issues rolling out games um, don't even run. They're running at I forget what the standard is, but it's like um, NTC PAL or whatever, where the European standard of video frame rate versus the US standard of video frame rates, and it's completely different. You and I are used to 60 frames per second, whereas in Europe it's like 58.85
it's a
or something
different.
like that. And
Yeah.
so it's jarring to see certain games, even though it's only 2 frames. It's a very jarring experience. And so yeah, Sony has every right to be concerned about these subscribers. They've been behind the ball for a minute now, and gaming is going to get to the point where, we just saw Microsoft, quote unquote, debut their handheld, the Logitech G, whatever it's called, and that's a straight up streaming device. A straight up streaming device. They've already said this is basically where gaming is going, and I happen to agree with them. I don't know, it's not going to happen for a while, but why would I pay? If you're, and this is, I guess, from a perspective of a guy in his 40s, right? Why am I going to pay $500 for a system? Another $550 for the VR headset, which just got announced too. $550 for a VR headset. Good Lord. And then I'm going to add some games, and then I'm going to try to add, the Sony PlayStation Plus subscription service. This doesn't seem financially, responsible. Like you said, you're trying to trim some fat, right? Like I said, I'll end up buying a PlayStation 5 eventually, and that'll be the one time that I might play 1 or 2 games on there, just to have that 4K, 120 frames per second game that comes out, with all the fixings, just to enjoy that experience, and then whatever, the kids can do whatever they want with it. But I'll be stuck on my Steam Deck doing multiple gaming. I will say though that I am actually in the process of putting Game Pass on my Steam Deck, because I've heard that experience is actually pretty awesome. So I really want to do that today, and get that done with, and start gaming that way, because it just opens up my library even more for games that I'll never finish.
Absolutely.
So yeah, if I'm Sony, I feel like Sony is just, they're kind of like, and I'm sure people won't understand this, but they're kind of like the camera companies, right? You got Canon, you got Sony, you got Nikon, and then you got your fringe Fuji. Okay, that's Microsoft, that's Nintendo, that's Sony, and then your fringe Valve Steam Deck. And so people are like, man, we like these Fuji cameras because they're retro and they feel great, and they have all this power to them in a small package that doesn't, we don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on. Whereas you have Canon and Sony, who are at the tops of their game, with the technology, the glass, and everything like that. And they Sony was the first one to go mirrorless. Okay, and then everybody was waiting for Canon and Nikon, and then Canon's like, nope, we got to go mirrorless. Okay, they went mirrorless, and Nikon was the very last company to jump on board with this, and they've been playing catch up ever since. And I feel like that's where Sony is at right now with their gaming platform. They've always had the hardware. They've always had it, right? That DualSense controller is amazing. I wish we had those. I'm sure we'll get it once we get some more Sony titles over to the PC side, to take advantage of that DualSense controller, especially with those adaptive triggers. That's just a phenomenal thing. So they've always had the hardware. They've always been top dog when it comes to the hardware. But the software part of it, they're falling behind, and they should absolutely be concerned with, it's only 2% now, but once this deal goes through with Activision, people are going to start going over towards Microsoft a lot more.
Yep, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And It's going to be interesting. These wars aren't over, and I think Valve, Steam, whatever you want to call it, is making themselves a bigger player into it. Of course, I don't ever believe there'll be a console, but um, you know, I remember at one time where like PC gaming was an anomaly, right? It was just this small little community to an extent, and a lot of games weren't developed for the PC or whatever. But as time has progressed, the PC now has your Xbox and your PlayStation exclusives. So then, yes, it's not going to be for everybody to go out and buy a PC, but I do see the effects of that. And I just see the overall effects of how gaming is going to have to morph with these times. Who knows? Uh, After the Nintendo Switch and the Steam Deck, I think there's been bubblings that Microsoft is thinking about coming out with its own handheld. To be fair with you, I probably won't purchase it, if it did even come out. But I mean, it had to be something pretty spectacular.
Right.
But
Well, and like I said, I think that's what the Logitech G Cloud. I think it's called G Cloud. Now that I think about it, but
mm,
that's a Microsoft backed device
mm,
that's exclusive for the Game Pass, and so um, it's nothing powerful or anything like that. It's just a streaming device. Uh, but Microsoft has made a clear statement of this is where we see gaming going in the future.
and so we're going
Um,
to take advantage of it while we can.
right, and it'll get there eventually, but the infrastructure, unless I can have Wi-Fi, no matter where I'm at in the world,
I
uh,
hate that.
I will always have something that I can play offline.
I agree.
I can't play offline. I can't play on Wi-Fi at work, right?
Mhm.
My company would be like, no, you're done. You're
Yeah,
out of here.
absolutely. Well, we'll see what happens with that. Mike, we're going to go ahead and get to our project. I know we were going to talk about Microsoft, but that's not really that big of news. All right, so our project this week is we decided to rewatch Black Panther, just in preparation for Black Panther 2. That's going to be out, I believe, November. Let's see, I think it's coming out November 18th. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But by going back, we just wanted to, of course, take a look, get refreshed, and prepare for Black Panther 2. So, if you don't remember, the first Black Panther is just a more than anything, it's an introduction of Wakanda. Yes, we did see Wakanda, a city view of Wakanda in uh in a Civil War. And then so now we're seeing more of Wakanda and its people. And funny enough, that can be my first thing about this is because no one even enters Wakanda in the in Black Panther, but Civil War they were like just kicking it in the streets, right? And of course we were looking. No, sorry, it wasn't Civil War. It was Age of Ultron when they went to Wakanda. Am I mistaken, Mike?
I'm trying to think of what scene you're talking about.
Okay, so remember when the Avengers went and they found Claw? Were they in Wakanda at that time?
No, because they remember they were on a uh
They were just in an African country, weren't they?
I want to say they were actually on a ship. Because they were transporting because Claw had just stolen from Wakanda and he was on a ship. And because they had a whole bunch of containers on the ship or whatever, and that's when Ultron came in there and
So
uh
what African country was it that Hulk went wild and then the Hulk Buster had to come in and stop him?
that was okay. I see where you're going with this. Yeah, so that was Civil War, but it wasn't. They weren't in Wakanda. But there was a Wakandan embassy. That's what the whole issue was.
Got it. Got it.
Because the Scarlet Witch actually accidentally detonated that device at the beginning of the movie, where it was I don't know, like I said, it was like a an embassy or consulate that the Wakandan people had gotten killed. Uh, and I want to say it was that same city as where you had the Hulkbuster armor drop down on them.
Yeah. All right. So sorry. Then going back, we got an introduction to Wakanda. This is right after King uh, T'Chaka had just been killed, and T'Challa had just came back, and he was now going to be crowned king. Of course, he takes over as king after a bit of conflict with M'Baku, and then we kind of get straight to the to everything where they have now realized they have now pinpointed where Claw is, and they want to bring him back, but they don't realize that he's now working with Killmonger, and Killmonger, of course, is uh Prince Nobu. Uh, excuse me with these names. He is the brother of King T'Chaka, and he has gone militant because he's realized from his time of being in America that Black people are dealing with a lot, and we have the tools to help them, but we're not doing that. And so we go on, and of course, we get to the point where Killmonger and Black Panther eventually fight. Killmonger takes over, and we think he discards the Black Panther, and Nujoku saves him, and the fight begins to now reclaim the throne of Wakanda. And of course, overall, Wakanda is of course saved, and everything is kind of done after that. And looking at this movie again, and I'm doing the synopsis kind of wrong here, but looking at this movie again, it's still so good. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering to myself, like, now I won't say that I was thinking that it wouldn't hold up. I thought I would look at it from a different lens. Like now that I've seen so many Marvel movies and stuff like that, I thought I'd come back to it and be like, man, this really wasn't as good as I thought it was. And I was sadly mistaken. It's still so good. Just how they captured everything.
Mm-hmm.
And uh I don't know. I just can't explain it. The feeling that that movie gives me on all points of view. Like Chadwick Boseman was the perfect casting of T'Challa in that movie. The everybody was cast perfectly in that movie. Now that I sit here and I think about it, like I'm still super proud of how that movie turned out because Mike, we might have talked about this in the past, maybe we didn't, but there was this thing where it was like if Black Panther doesn't make it, we don't know what's going to happen with other Black superhero movies,
Right.
right? And there was a general concern of if if that feeling doesn't come through in this movie, or is Chadwick Boseman going to come out with this bogus African accent, or there was all these questions in that sense. It wasn't even about the action or anything. It was just more of the fact of, hey, y'all really, this is a task here. Y'all can't screw it up.
Right.
And you know, of course, like always, we tip our hat off to Ryan Coogler because the element that he set was perfect. He did a great job. I mentioned this before, but the lady who did win an Oscar for Black Panther, who did the costume design,
Mm-hmm.
she Ruth, I can't remember her last name right now. She knocked it out the park. Those costumes designs were phenomenal, and it's really what carried that movie. It just felt so original. So I say this with no funny business. So African. It just had every feel like these felt like real African tribes and not an African trope, which
Mm.
was perfect, right? Because the last thing that, of course, I was looking for was an African trope where we're laughing at these tribes just to make something work, right? And if you look at the old Black Panther, M'Baku, I can't remember, his name was Gorilla something, but
Mm-hmm.
we were terrified that he would show up. But they were able to make it make sense and not make it this really, I guess you can call it a sign of its time thing, and make it work. Mike, what's your thoughts on it before we get into some of the questions about Black Panther?
Yeah, Ruth Carter, that's the one you're thinking of,
Yes, thank you.
that won the Academy Award for, best costume, design. So shout out to her for just making it feel, because like you said, yeah, it could have been something like, and I like I can really think of is like coming to America, right? Like, are we gonna get like that kind of, garb and, that kind of those kind of accents and things like that. And granted, that was a comedy, but you just never knew what the implications of this movie were going to be, and that's even with somebody like Ryan Coogler directing the movie, who's a very well known director within Hollywood and just does really really well, pays attention to the details in his movies, whether whether it be Black Panther or even like his series of movies now, um, with Michael B. Jordan. So I just shout out to Coogler, to Ruth Carter, and then the actors. The casting was just phenomenal. I remember listening to a behind the scenes with Chadwick about that accent and him talking to people who were actually from Africa that were cast in the movie, and how to properly say that, you know the certain dialect that they were going for. Uh, and so he really, and we said this before, when you have an actor who really buys into the character that they're playing, they go all out. And they inspire others that are on that same cast to go all out to pay attention to the details, and how it should really act. How you should act in that movie. And so, um, a lot of good things came from that movie. I mean, obviously, we lost Chadwick. That was very unfortunate. Somebody so young and so talented. Um, losing him was just a huge blow. But, when you had him, you had Lupita in there, of course, Michael B. Jordan, Winston Duke, of course, Forrest Whitaker, Andy Serkis. You had all these people, Angela Bassett, um, a lot of cats in there, Sterling Brown. A lot of things came from that. Sterling Brown got his own TV show, um, that was very popular, that I didn't care to watch because it was overly dramatic. The This Is Us, I think it is.
Hmm. Well,
Uh,
he had This Is Us before Black Panther.
oh, did he? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Um,
But
but
he showed his acting chops,
yeah, for
and
real.
he's going to be great going
Yeah, so
forward.
you had a lot of actors in there that uh just really did their thing. And um I was really impressed with just the immersiveness of that film, and make you really feel like you're a part of that culture, and really feel what that culture is like.
Mm,
Um it's just a great story, great villain, that almost made you feel bad for the villain. I think we've talked about that before.
mhm.
So just everything overall really done well. Uh, and despite Ryan Coogler doing the sequel, I don't know if this is how you feel, Roddy, but I still feel that nervousness of, man, I hope, I don't know if I would feel this way if Chadwick was still alive, but now that he's gone, and we don't have T'Challa in this movie, it still makes me nervous. I hope they do well. I hope they really do well, because I still feel like if it doesn't do at least as well as the first movie, what's the impact for, like you said, black superheroes going forward? Not just male black superheroes, but female black superheroes, because we're getting our female debut of Black Panther, and not only that, but we're also getting Ironheart in that as well. And so, yeah, it makes me nervous. But the first movie was it's hard to top that. I feel like
No,
it's hard to top that.
you know, I agree with that, and I guess it's kind of foul that you have to prove yourself over and over again because you're only as good as your last film,
Right.
in a sense. But I do understand because the dynamics have changed quite a bit for this movie. I will say I do wonder if Marvel is trolling as far as who the Black Panther is going to be. In a sense, like maybe Shuri is Black Panther for like 5 minutes, but then it goes to somebody else, right? Not
Right.
saying that that's the case, but it's just a curiosity in that sense. I will say that because of everything, the sequel becomes very interesting, but I think a lot of that gets taken away when, at least for me as a comic book fan, because Namor is the bad, even though I think there'll be another bad in the movie.
Right.
So and then I don't know, man, the way that they hit off that trailer compared to the others, I feel like this is right in Ryan Coogler's sandbox. And I don't know, his passion, dedication to certain things and how he looks at it seems to work extremely well. So I don't discount anything. I am a little nervous about Ironheart, but
I'm
funny
very
enough,
nervous about Ironheart.
but I will say I saw a commercial with the young lady who plays Ironheart for like a Target commercial.
Yeah.
And to me, even without, because I, me, Mike, I haven't looked at any other trailer or anything. Um, uh, I think, I think she has that it, and so I think that's a good thing. Without seeing her do anything really yet, but I just feel that she doesn't have to do too much, right? We're already looking at the lady who plays Shuri because of some controversial stuff. And it's not even really that deep, but it's just the fact she's going to be the mantle of Black Panther. So I think all eyes are on her more than is Ironheart. So the person who's playing Ironheart just needs to be, just do their thing, right? The pressure's not on them to be different if they were carrying the film, right? Because Ironheart's got her TV show. When that comes out, then she's really going to have to show out, right? But the way that I look at her is the way that I looked at um I would say possibly Lupita Nyong'o in the first one, right? She's going to be there. We don't know how much she's going to be in the movie anyway, but um no, sorry, I'll say Diana Garari, right? The lady from Walking Dead. Um, she's going to be there, but all she had to do was say a couple things, and you were in love with her already, right? So I'm curious to see how they do that with Ironheart, and we'll see. We'll definitely be having a bigger conversation about that once the movie comes out. All right, Mike. Let's. Oh, sorry, you got something?
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's get going back into the movie real quick. Mike, let's start off. What was your best part or element of the movie?
Oh man, that's tough because this movie in general was just phenomenal. I think if anything, I'd have to say that that last sequence of events at the end of the movie where you have Chadwick and Michael B. Jordan going at it, and you have this great fight scene where T'Challa is basically he can't rely on his Black Panther powers because he doesn't have them, but he's relying on his smarts. Uh, you know, and they didn't necessarily say this in the MCU, but in the comic books, there are like a top three, top five of smartest people in Marvel Comics. Um, and T'Challa's in that top five. Um, and a lot people would argue is probably top three. Um, Depending on who's writing or who's telling the story, it's either, Reed Richards, Doctor Doom, or T'Challa as being the most smartest person in comics. And so you kind of see that in this last scene, this last sequence of events when he and Killmonger are going at it, and he's not able to really take Killmonger down physically, but he's relying on the technology within that mountain uh, to really take down Killmonger. And then when he eventually does, Killmonger is seemingly fatally wounded. There's that great dialogue at the end, um, and Killmonger gets to see the
The
sunset,
sunset.
and I was just like, man, like all right, Killmonger, you were kind of I mean, you were a bad guy. You were a bad guy, but you were a bad guy for you had a moral reason for being the bad guy. It might not have been the right moral reason, but you had
You
it, and I
you
kind of feel bad
sympathize
that
with his
you're
intentions.
yeah, you know, and so
Mhm.
that to me was I think the most impactful part of the movie.
All right. So mine has always been the casino scene.
Mm.
And it's when everything pops off and they're on that second floor. And I don't know. I saw Ryan Coogler mention it on, I think, a Vogue interview or something like that, and he's going through it shot by shot. But the way that the music kicks in, and she's fighting the two guards, and then jumps off the top floor. Uh, Once I saw that scene, that movie could have stopped right there, and I would have loved that movie for the rest of days, just because of how that cinematic shot came together. And the biggest part or element for me has always been the score, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I hate that I don't know the gentleman's name, but that score to me was perfectly impactful when he goes to when he meets the previous Black Panthers, when there's other particular scenes going on, and it feels, I don't know, it brings you right in, and it you just feel so good as you're watching it, right? And I
Yeah.
think and I think um uh I don't know if it won an Oscar, but man, I hope it was nominated at least.
Right.
But it really did the
It
job
did
for
win an
me.
Oscar for best original score.
Oh, awesome, awesome! Because I think I really think they knocked it out the park. Because there's sorry, but there's also one other little part where T'Challa meets his father again, and he's like, uh, stand up, you're a king now, and that score just hits right there, and you're like, ooh, okay, oh yeah, we hitting it now. So
Uh-huh.
that was my most favorite. Those were like some of my favorite parts and elements of the movie. All right. What was your worst part of the movie, if you have one?
Ooh. I
And we're talking just for conversational saying, if there wasn't even a bad, if there was a bad part.
right. I mean, there are no perfect. I mean, no movie is ever like perfect straight through and through. This one's pretty close.
Yeah.
I would. I would probably have to go with, and it's not so much because it was terribly done or anything like that. I just didn't like um, that Wakabi. Uh, you know, just so quick to turn coat uh on
Yeah.
T'Challa. Just so quick to turn coat on T'Challa, man. I get like, he was always he seemed like the beginning of the movie, he's like, yeah, we're buddies and this and that or whatever. Um, but then like, when Killmonger eventually comes through to take over, he was quick to dismiss T'Challa. I was like, oh, okay, all right. So you trust this man over the guy that's been the king for a minute now. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't like that at all. I was just like, yeah, okay, this guy. And then of course he's back in everybody's good graces now. And I'm like, okay. I'm always keeping an eye on this dude because it just he turned cold a little too quick for me.
Yeah.
They get too, and I get it. Like, um, he had issue uh with especially with Andy Serkis's character, coming into Wakanda and into the territory, killing people and everything like that, and what are we doing about it? Type of situation. But I thought that one was. I just thought that he just turncoated a little too quickly. Um,
You know what? Quick ain't even the world. It was literally instant.
yeah,
Like,
it was like he showed no loyalty, and I was like, well, how
yes.
can you trust this dude anymore, man?
Yeah.
Oh, and it'll be interesting to see like what that relationship's going to be like in the second movie.
From
You
my
know?
understanding, he is not in the second movie.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
So now I hope that's one of those things where they make you believe one thing and then the other thing takes place.
right.
But we'll have to see how that goes. So for me, uh, my worst part of the movie has to be Ulysses Claw. And when I say that, not Andy Serkis, because I loved him playing Claw.
Uh-huh.
It's just that to me, it was like there wasn't enough of him,
Mm.
right? Because um, he played such a good role as Claw. And of course, if you ever seen Claw from the comic books, of course, they don't look nothing alike, which is fine. But I really feel like, and Andy Serkis is an amazing actor because he does this with everything he puts his hands on. When he was in Planet of the Apes, when
Mhm.
he plays other roles, he plays these particular characters. And you're like, man, I really don't understand how come he didn't win an Oscar for Planet of the Apes. I know it's the cinematography is done differently, or how he acts is done differently, but he always played a great role in those movies. But as Claw, I thought he was a great villain. Don't get me wrong, it's not that he had to stay in there forever either. I understand why he was killed, but like I don't know. There was just still always some clamoring for some more of Andy Serkis, and I
Right.
think it was too short, too soon.
Yeah.
But it it doesn't take away from the overall thing.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have seen like the actual attempt in like the actual incursion into Wakanda
Hmm.
and to have him steal whatever vibranium he stole. Like it would have been interesting to see that because we all know he's a bad guy, but he's like, he's public enemy number one,
Hmm.
in the eyes of Wakanda. And that's no small feat. Like this dude came into a place that nobody's allowed into, stole, and made it out. Um, so it would have been like interesting to have like at least a little 10-15 minute sequence where you get to see like him go into there with, I'm sure he had a crew or whatnot, um, and grab some vibranium and get out.
Yeah, because they
And to
just showed
see,
like that little clip or whatever, and then called it a day.
yeah, and then that way you can see why Wakabi was so mad and
Hmm.
this and that. So yeah, that would be, yeah, I totally get what you're saying there.
So Mike, one thing I wanted to correct myself on. So it was Avengers: Age of Ultron. They went when they went to Africa. Of course, the thought was that they would go to Wakanda, but they went to Johannesburg, and then that's when
Oh, right. Yeah.
Scarlet Witch,
Yeah, it's Johannes. Yeah, Johannesburg. Yeah.
changed the Hulk, and then he went gangbusters through Johannesburg, and then the Hulkbuster had to show up.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So let's go to characters. Favorite characters of the movie. And I'm gonna start this one off. And so my favorite character of this movie has to be uh M'Baku, right? For someone who at the beginning kind of pissed you off because he was coming for the throne. At the end, when you see him after he saved T'Challa, and I'm trying to think of my man's name here, Winston Duke, his
Yep.
comedic timing
Yep.
when he was like, you when he was talking to Everett Ross, you say one more word, and I'm gonna feed you to my children. He's like, we're
Right.
vegetarians, right? Those type of things. And then if you ever seen Winston Duke in that movie with Mark Wahlberg,
Yes. Yeah.
he's a pretty funny guy. He can
Yeah.
do some comedy, right? And so um he's not in there long, of course, but man, what he did was quite impactful. And to be fair, I could have picked other characters like Shuri, of course, Chadwick Boseman, but um, got to give some credit where some credit is due because, um, excuse me, he really gave me a different light of himself, what I was expecting with that character by the end of the movie, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, Winston was he was legit, and so the thing with him, especially when you compare M'Baku to Wakabi, yes, he fought T'Challa in the beginning, but he was completely justified. That's how they elect their leader, right?
Hmm.
Um, when they go to all the clans and they say, "Who wants to challenge the king today?" And Baku is the only one, and rightfully so. You always got to have somebody. You just can't have the same dude up there. Like you got to have, if he's going to be a leader, he's got to prove that he's the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just like in real life. You can't just have the same president or the same diplomatic party or whatever. You got to choose. You got to challenge. You got to challenge people and challenge the government in the case of, hey, you got to do better. And so that's what Mbaku's whole thing was. And so you get that. But then he showed his loyalty to the family at the end. Um,
Yep.
Whereas your boy Wakabi, all right, standing all by T'Challa's side during that challenge and everything like that. Oh yeah, we all buddies and all. And then as soon as Killmonger, nah, man, nah, we ain't cool no more. What? You just flipped like that? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, I liked M'Baku. I thought he was pretty cool. I think my favorite character, I mean, obviously, Chadwick Boseman did his thing, so it's easy to pick him as the favorite character, and rightfully so. Um, but it's kind of hard, man. Like, um, I really enjoyed Killmonger. I really enjoyed Michael B. Jordan's play on Killmonger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I liked the backstory. I mean, even with Sterling Brown playing his father, you're understanding Michael B. Jordan's whole motivation. He was just a really good bad guy. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that he said, like when he stole that mask, uh, how smart he was. First of all, I love the way he dressed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, love the way his hair was. I loved how he was talking about the mask and everything like that. And he had like these subtle, like philosophical points there. But then you saw like the ruthlessness when he takes out Killmonger, or not Killmonger, but uh, Andy Serkis's character. Gosh,
Claw.
Claw. And even the girl that was on his crew, like he took that girl out, like you just saw like the viciousness
Mm-hmm.
in there. You
Nothing was
saw that,
stopping the mission.
right? And then even when he fought T'Challa, like T'Challa, let's talk, let's work this out. I don't want to have to hurt you. I'm holding back. Whereas Michael B. Jordan's character, who they said, he was special forces, um, and you saw like that ferocity when he fought T'Challa. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
give two F's about T'Challa's life whatsoever. Even when he took in the flower to get that Black Panther power, and then have everything else destroyed, um, was crazy. I was just like, man, this dude, uh, man, I don't know. I don't know what you do about this guy. Uh, and then, like I said before, the ending in that last scene, um, when he's seemingly fatally wounded. And I keep saying seemingly because you're the one that brought this point up. I mean, did he really die? you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so we really don't know if he died. Uh, but it seemed like he died. But with the technology that they have in Wakanda, I mean, they could have brought him back to life, or healed his wounds,
Hey,
and
I
then
don't know
put
if
him
you
in some kind of
remember,
prison.
there was an article a couple, I want to say maybe a year and a half ago during development that he was coming back for the sequel. I mean, people might have forgotten that article, but there was a rumor at that time that he was coming back for the sequel, and people were like, wait a second. And they were like, well, maybe that then defeats the purpose or whatever. But we'll have to see how that goes. So, somehow, some way he might show up in this. Some way, somehow he might be the Black Panther. That'd be crazy, but we'll see
Yeah,
what happens.
I think the fact that so I, I only did this because I was trying to remember people's names and everything. So I'm bringing up the cast of Black Panther 2,
Hmm.
um, and I have on a separate tab the cast of Black Panther 1.
Hmm.
Uh, and if you compare them, so of course Michael B. Jordan's name is in the cast for Black Panther 2, um, but they don't give
Who
who
he
he
is?
is.
Yeah.
Okay. They also don't say, and so when you look at the cast for Black Panther 1, it says Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther. It doesn't say
Hmm.
Chadwick Boseman, T'Challa.
Mm-hmm.
It says Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther. Okay, and Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Okay, you got Letitia Wright. It doesn't say Black Panther though. It just says Shuri,
Mm.
and nothing on here says Shuri or says Black Panther.
Mm.
Um, Now, I don't know how much of that to look into. I mean, Forrest Whitaker's in the credits too for the cast of Black Panther 2. Uh, and it doesn't have anything for who he is
Yeah.
in that character in that movie, but it does say Zuri for Black Panther 1. So I mean, you can take that for whatever it's worth. Um, but yeah, I mean, does this mean that Michael B. Jordan could be Black Panther? You know, is Shuri gonna be Black Panther? Is Okoye gonna be Black Panther? I can see Okoye being Black Panther.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know, or even I mean even Lupita's character I think would
Mm-hmm.
even make more sense to be
Black Panther.
Black Panther. You know, because
Yep.
she was a spy, I guess. You know, warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so and then I guess just to throw it out another, I guess even Okoye, being in there, and Io, like they the sheer brilliance of what they did,
Mm-hmm.
um, as far as not even so much as um uh the acting chops and the talking points, whatever, but just the action part of what they did in that movie to be a part of that elite guard,
Mm-hmm.
um, and to make you believe like, yo, okay, yeah, they're the elite guard. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like these are women that you don't mess with whatsoever.
The only time I saw an elite guard of women before was apparently Gaddafi had some back in the day, and you could take that with a grain of salt because that could have been his concubines, to be real with you. But
Right,
but
yeah,
with this, they carried themselves in a particular way. In that movie, a woman guard just the Woman King just came out
yep. I was just
with
about to bring that up with Viola. Yep,
yeah. So the representation of that hits a little differently. And then they, again, due to Ruth Carter, how they were dressed and the militant look that they kept, that you knew that they weren't for play. They were taken with a particular, um, they were taken, serious. It's like don't think that just that only Black Panther and Shuri and Okoye are the fighters here. Like this guard ain't for play either, and they showed it
right.
because when they took on Killmonger at the end, the four ladies. And that choreography for that last scene for them. Oh,
Yeah.
anyway, Mike, let's go ahead and get to least favorite character. I'll let you start this one off, and then I'll say my say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you already know. Like, I'm already gonna say it's Wakabi. I
Mm.
just thought he was a punk. I thought he's to be untrustworthy. Um, you could pick. Uh, I keep forgetting his name, but Andy Serkis's character. Uh, but I thought Wakabi was just such a turncoat. I didn't really enjoy him at all. I just thought like, nah, man, you need to be kicked out the kingdom. Um, like no kind of loyalty.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that he was just it is and even saying that that's nitpicking
Yep.
because all the characters were so well done. And it's a credit to the writing, the direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe and again, this is nitpicking. Maybe Forrest Whitaker's character
Mm.
Zuri. Uh, I thought he was kind of a little too wussy. I don't know. I didn't really care for his accent.
Mm.
Because he sounded too much like old boy from Star Wars. His character in Star Wars, like
Oh,
the
right.
accents are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So maybe that, but that's just nitpicking uh,
I
for
will
me.
say, now that you mentioned it that way, I look at him almost kind of like I look at Denzel. It's
Right,
always going to be Forrest Whitaker, but he'll just tweak it a little bit,
right,
right?
right.
But so my least favorite character is Everett Ross, played by Martin Short.
Okay,
Um, and like you said, this is just nitpicking. Um, I feel like he had no reason to really be there, right? Other than it helps kind of connect the universe to the rest of the other Marvel universe,
right,
right? Between him and Claw and Black Panther, I think those are the only ones that were in another Marvel movie before that movie,
right.
if I'm mistaken, right? But um again, I understand this role, but it could have been anybody, right? It was such a non-plus role. Like, you don't I like, there's no emotional connection to him. He just helped kind of bring the movie together in particular parts, right? But um he wasn't really one of my favorites. And I want to make it clear, love Martin Short, in the sense of, I remember him playing in the Sherlock movies with Benedict Cumberbatch. And
Oh, the
I
yeah,
think,
the series, yeah,
yep, the BCC series,
yeah, yeah. Martin Freeman,
BBC series, excuse me.
yeah,
So but yeah, so I love them in that, but I don't know. This one, like, and matter of fact, I loved them in Age of Ultron. No, it wasn't Age of Ultron. It was Civil War.
Civil War, yeah,
Yeah, but for this, I don't think he was really necessary. But that's me nitpicking. Like, I understand in the grand scheme of things why he was there, but it is what it is.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
I think he's just uh, I would he's basically like he's Agent Coulson's replacement, basically. Like
yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
serves that purpose of Agent Coulson when Agent Coulson was around in the movies,
Right.
to kind of give you a little bit of comic relief, especially for a movie that was, I don't want to say dark, but had a more serious tone to it.
Hmm.
He provided that little bit of comic relief, and then a bridge to other movies, because he'll be in, he'll be in the next Black Panther and
Yeah.
some of the other movies, and to kind of tie those all in together, you got to have that one Agent Coulson like character, I guess.
You know what? Now that you said Colson, that makes me kind of salty he wasn't in Endgame. But it is what it
That
is.
situation got weird because they split him off into Agents of Shield,
Yep.
which for a while was still connected to the MCU, but then they went off onto a different branch universe.
Mm,
Um, and it just got weird, and then it wasn't connected to the MCU. And
yeah.
so, in fact, it got severely disconnected from the MCU when they brought in the Inhumans.
Yeah.
And so that was unfortunate, because I liked him as Agent Coulson.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think Martin's a good replacement, but like you said, I mean, it's just you got to have him in there.
Yep. He's a
you know,
bridge. I
yeah,
respect it. I
yeah.
respect it. All right. Well, that's it for our project. And Mike, let's do our little bit of speed round for upcoming stuff. Is there anything upcoming that you are excited for?
So Black Panther 2 actually comes out next week.
Yes.
So it's the 11th. So I won't be seeing it opening weekend. We got too much going on. But so that's coming out. We got God of War Ragnarok coming out next week, and then we talked about that last week. But then the one real interesting one to me is Sonic Frontiers. God of War apparently has already reviewed well on Metacritic. In fact, I think it's done a point better than the original God of War, or the 2018 God of War. Um, with people saying like it's just does so much more and better than the first one, which is crazy to me because the first one was fantastic, even though I haven't finished it yet.
Hmm.
Um, but uh, I'm waiting for Sonic Frontiers. I'm really curious to see how this is gonna do, because I just, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, man, I kind of want to get this day one, and I don't know, we'll see, because especially because it'll be out for the Steam Deck. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited for that. As far as anything else, I mean, other than Black Panther 2 coming out next week, I'm excited for that. I think the Sonic game is the one that I'm super stoked about.
Yeah, I'm excited too. My little guest star Maria decided to show up real quick. Hi, Maria. Okay, bye. But anyway, uh, I am looking at Sonic Frontiers. I've been looking at the gameplay, and I'm intrigued
Yeah,
to
it's
say the
interesting.
least.
Yeah, it's
I
interesting.
want to see how it translates when it's in someone else's hands. So I can't wait to see a review on that. Um, I'm going to try to see Black Panther opening day. It might be too late to get a reserve ticket, but we'll see if that happens. I might just go out on a Thursday night and check it out for the first time in a while. I used to love doing that in the past. I haven't done it in a very long time. But this, if there was any movie I was going to do it for, this would definitely be one of them.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else. I just like you, I saw the reviews for Ragnarok, and they consider a masterpiece already. It looks beautiful. I'm still working on the last one, and I want to get that out of the way. Oh, Fanatics has a deal for Miles Morales for $45.
Okay.
Until I think November 12th or like November 20. I can't remember. So Mike, if you want to do the
Yeah,
thing,
we might have to cop that one.
yeah, because I don't recall it being bad. I haven't, to be fair, because it came around the pandemic. I haven't heard much about it either. But I don't recall it being bad at all. So I'm definitely game to pitch in my half on that one. So yeah,
I'm
there's go ahead.
I'm curious. You don't have your PlayStation 4 anymore, correct?
No, I got rid of it a while back.
Okay, so I still have mine. Elias has been playing that. He's been playing God of War multiple times. So he's beat the game multiple times.
Hmm.
I am kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place because I want to play this on the Steam Deck, but that probably won't be out till next year.
Hmm.
Uh, or I could just buy it now when it comes
Hmm.
out and play it on my PS4. Um, Something I didn't realize was that God of War Ragnarok was built for the PS4
Hmm.
and then just I essentially ported over to the PS5, of course.
Hmm.
Um, so now knowing that, I'm like, oh well, if it was built for the PS4, then maybe I'll get it for the PS4. But then I'm also like, well, then I'm not really gonna play it because I'm not gonna have the time, and I know Elias will play it. And if he beats it before I even have a chance to play it, then spoiler alert is completely out the window because he can't help himself. He's always like, "Hey, by the way, did you play this guy?" I'm like, well,
Hmm.
he already spoiled it. Did you beat God of War?
No, not yet. I won't talk to Elias until after I beat it
Do you
because
okay? Because do you know who the boy is?
I have feelings because of the reviews that I looked
Okay.
at.
Well,
Hmm.
Elias already told me who the boy was. So I was like,
Yeah.
come on,
Well,
man.
and here's the thing, man. In your side, I think the issue you would have is if you bought a PS5, because
Right,
then you got to buy it again,
right, right,
right? And I don't know if you want to do that, all of that.
right.
So I would just
I
wait.
don't know if I would buy it again
Mm,
because I'm gonna buy it for the Steam Deck.
mm,
Um, and Elias would have already played it on the PS4, so I can't see myself buying it again. Because at that point you're only buying it to unlock 60 frames per second.
yep.
Um, and for those types of games, I don't really care to play it at 60 frames per second. That's not something to me. Everybody says, well, it's you got better reaction time. That doesn't really matter to me.
No.
And I question how much of a advantage that really is.
Hey, I
Um,
ain't gonna hold you. If you suck, you suck, and I know I suck at games,
right. And
right?
then the other part of it would be, well, the only reason to do 60 frames per second is how it looks.
Hmm.
And at that point, it's that soap opera effect. And so I rather just play it at 30 frames per second and get that movie like experience rather than, I only play 60 frames plus if it's like a shooting game or
Mhm.
a sports game. All my Madden and 2K is done at 60 frames per second. All right.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what it's always been at. Um, Shooting games, 60 frames per second. Your Call of Duties, your Battlefronts, your Battlefields. Anything else, I could care less about.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I just thought that was curious. The fact that it's available for the PS4, that might be a holiday present for Elias. I don't know. We'll see.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, it's that time again to say goodbye. But this has been a great episode, and I'm looking forward to eventually having a discussion with Michael about, Black Panther 2 and holiday seasons come around. So we're gonna have to have some Black Friday discussions. And of course, I'll have another project for you soon. Until then, I'm going to soon start adding things to clips. Look out for some of the projects that Michael's been working on. I know he's got some stuff brewing in the lab that he's getting ready to push out. Until then, keep your imagination up, and we'll see you for the next episode of the Nation80 Podcast.